Hi, everyone. So, welcome to Brown Girls Read podcast. And we are back after a long, long break. But I feel like we have good reasons to stay away from this podcast for so long. We were going through some life transitions, some traumatic decisions that some of us took that we have to live with for our whole lives.
I like how you put it, traumatic decisions. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, I moved back to India a couple months back. I was living in California for 8 years, and then my husband and I decided to move back. And it's been 3 months. It's been a huge, huge transition, like very, very difficult, more than I think what we ever expected it's going to be. You feel like, okay, so it's your country. What is the worst that could happen? Or like, what do you not know about your country that's going to surprise you so much or shock you so much? But it definitely does.
So, what's shocking right now?
I mean, it's actually not shocking. It's just that like there's just like a lot of people in this country, right? Like
I think
I mean,
everyone knows that, Kathy.
yeah, but for some reason you just don't expect that, because it had been already 2.5 years since we had visited India because of COVID. And so for some reason I just forgot. Like, I knew there would be like lot more people than definitely than California, but not these many. But yeah, we're dealing with it. And then the weather, it was super hot when we arrived. Now it's a little bit better. Other than that, the people, like your family, their expectations, your neighbors, like everything's like just too much to handle at this point.
Sounds
But
like you're having too much fun, so much excitement around you.
yeah, that's one way to put it.
All right. Um, I guess let's also move on to why we are here today, which is this book, Tell Me How to Be by Neel Patel. So, a little bit of a summary about this book is that it's a story of an Indian family with two sons, a mom, and the dad has just passed away when the story begins. And the story is told from the point of view of the mom, Renu, and the younger son, Akash. And like the title says, Tell Me How to Be, that's kind of how the theme of the book is, where the society and the people are kind of always telling you how you should be and never really allow you to be who you are.
I think, yeah, you know what, Daman, like when I read this book, I was still in the US, and I thought, okay, everyone knows it. Like, Indian families not especially fond of like LGBTQ community, or like don't even want to acknowledge them. Okay, fine. But when I moved here, and now that I'm seeing like they're still like there, like they're still just stuck there. Like, because in this, like if you go back to the book, the story begins with an Indian American boy called Akash who lives in LA, and he's gay. And like he's constantly thinking that that in his mom's world there's no place for people like him, right? Like, in Renu's world there's no place for people like Akash. And this, I feel like this is so true for most of the Indian families. Like, even today, like when you come back, because in the US I feel like it's still normalized, right? Like, we talk about gay, we talk about lesbian, we talk about LGBTQ, but like
Also, I guess
in
you were living so close to San Francisco that you see
yeah,
the exposure and openness more. I guess if
right.
you're living in some other state, you still would be not that shocked going back to India.
I think so. Yeah, you're right. Because in our families, like even now, it's so difficult to even say the word gay or lesbian in front of our parents. Like, it makes them so uncomfortable. Most of the time, they would just refuse to even acknowledge it. They won't say the words too. And sometimes I'm like, what if like one day I was thinking like that. I was like, what if I had you know I had turned out to be gay, right? Like, what would happen then? Like, I mean, it would just break, all hell would break loose, I feel like.
I feel like they try to just be in denial as much as possible. From what I've observed, like if they see something on TV, just change the channel.
Yeah.
They know about everything. I'm pretty sure they know. They're like smart people. It's not like they're living in some other planet where they don't know like about the spectrum of people that exist. It's that they don't want to see it, don't want to accept it. So it's this weirdness we feel like, especially if you see some movie on TV, there's some scene which is showing like a gay couple or a lesbian couple. Oh my god, the awkwardness of that moment.
Oh,
I
yeah.
know it's a famous thing in our community to talk about how when there's a kiss scene on TV and then people are looking for remote. I think it's like the urgency of finding remote is even more when there's like a LGBTQ couple or like just an individual on TV. And I actually
Yeah.
saw this recently. So you know that movie came out Badhai Do or
Oh,
Badhai Ho,
yes.
the
Yes.
the second one, right?
Yeah.
So that talks about a lot of these issues and
Right.
dynamics of relationships and how people have to hide from families. And in this movie too, like the main protagonists, they marry each other because there's no other choice, even though both of them are gay, and then they have their own relationships hidden from everyone. My dad started the movie and he didn't know what the movie was about, I think. And then few minutes into it hit a point where it becomes very clear what the movie is about. And he just like quit Netflix, went to something else, started watching something else.
You would
Like it,
probably never go back to Netflix.
yeah, I guess that movie just stayed there in my, currently
Yeah.
watching list for forever because it was never picked up again. But it bugged me, it bugged me like you were saying, you think people are talking about it, you think there's a change, but then you see this in your own families and you're like, okay, maybe I'm living in a different world, but the reality is this. And I wanted to make him sit and watch the movie and finish the movie, but I don't think it works like that. However, as a result of all this discomfort that I was feeling, I did try to bring up like a few of the issues that gay people or lesbians face, and just using some examples of people
How
around.
did you do that? Oh my God. I want to be there when you were doing that. Because
But
I really want to talk to, my parents about it. But like, of course, I don't know how to even start the conversation.
I think it has to be like a rant. That is my experience. It
Yeah.
cannot be a conversation. It is very one-sided monologue where I give example of someone, the challenges they face, and how unfair it is. Like how we just get to
Good
exist
point.
as we want to, but it's unfair that they don't. And just leave it
Yeah.
at that. Like I did not expect a response, and they did not have a response, but I think I still made a point there.
Wow, I mean, like that's amazing actually. I'm going to try that because I feel like, a lot of Indians, what they do is like they'll just refuse to even accept that, some like there, some ego comes in between, right? Like they're like, okay, homosexuality is not in our culture. Like that's the common thing that you hear in every Indian household. Or like, things like Indians don't get depressed. Like, what is this? I just don't understand it.
I think it's again that denial, right? It's
Yeah.
easier. Whereas if
Yeah.
you have to face something and acceptance is like far, far away, if you have to face something that there's a problem that exists in our society, they just are not ready for it. And I think especially things around sex and sexuality is also a product of our society being so weird about these topics where nobody talks about it. There's no sex ed, no proper sex
Yeah.
ed. And
Mhm.
then they just expect you to magically know how to make babies. But other than that, literally nothing.
How to make babies, how to raise babies, and that's it. Like, I mean, actually, they just want you to have babies.
Yeah, they don't tell you
That's
how
where
to
it
make
ends.
movies. You just learn like from your friends
Yeah.
or like TV or whatever, but
Yeah.
they don't tell you anything. And
Yeah.
I think because they're in this denial and limited worldview of we all have limited worldview, right? Of the friends we have and people we hang out with. But then some of these people also get to like positions of power, and then they start enforcing their own like moral compass on everyone else. And I think that's where things are really unfortunate. Have your
Right.
opinions in your house, that's fine, I guess. It's not the best
Mhm.
situation, but that's fine. But when you are like enforcing it on masses and making things illegal or calling them sinful and wrong, that is where it's so damaging to people.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And just like coming back to the book a little bit, I also, there's one other problem, right? Like, of course, it affects the community, it affects the country as a whole. Like, you're putting, like your expectations on just on basically strangers or rest of the world. Like, that's very, of course, that's damaging. But I feel like also, if you see, like, coming back to the book, Indian, like this thing of Indian parents refusing to acknowledge or accept their kids as they are, it also creates so much space and differences between them and their children. Like, for instance, in the book, like Akash and her mother both are going through things that are in their brain, like Akash is going through this shame and guilt of not being able to be who he truly is, or not being able to talk to his mom about it. And his mom is again going through this huge life transition where her husband has died, and now she's thinking about going back to her, thinking about the love of her life that she had before she got married to Akash's dad. And like all of these things are just going on in their minds, and both of them, like both of these people just can't like talk to each other about it. Like, can you imagine how much of a space, and I don't know, like how much difference it creates in relationships, right?
Oh, absolutely. But I'm also thinking, like, is this even like on the top priority list of parents when they're raising kids? Because I feel like obedience and, like, walking the line, following that set path that parents have set for kids is what is more important in my experience. Like, raising obedient kids is more important than having any friendship with them. I think that is not how parenting is seen. Maybe now things are changing. Next generations, I'm hoping, are doing better. But at least when we were growing up, we were not the same people with our parents as we were with our friends, right? So you kind of learn to have these multiple personalities out of your drive for safety, because if you are yourself with your parents, you might get, like, scolded or beaten up or something. So you learn that, you know not worth it. I'm
It's
just going to
not.
be a
Yeah.
padaku kid at home, and then
Right.
when you are at school, you probably are a different person.
Right.
And I guess
Right.
everybody loses in that. Parents, kids, everybody loses on it, and it's about time people start seeing that. But I do feel like there is a huge gap where it is not of importance for you to be close. It's more like
Right.
children do what they're told.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that's like, I mean, we're seeing it everywhere. Even like, people like us, my parents, now I can tell them, sometimes like now I'm like, and now I tell my parents, you don't even know what all I have done in my life because you can't.
Imagine going and sharing with them at that point of life that
Oh my God.
you drink or you have boyfriend. It would be like you will be grounded forever and never
Yeah.
trusted again, and also be told, like, oh, you brought shame to your family possibly.
Yeah.
So why would you go that path?
Yeah. And I think there is, like I also want to talk about this thing that comes up in the book a lot, like this theme of, because of course, like Akash is in this like huge dilemma if he should come out to his mom or not, and is to his brother or not. um and then there's this huge, like he's always going back to the past, thinking about how life has been for him all this while living in an Indian family and being gay. And then there's some things that come up because like he's thinking about how he used to love the color pink, I think, and because he's a boy, like he was never encouraged to do that. So there are like some, in Indian families there's some gender roles that are assigned to boys, and then there's some that are assigned to girls always. And it just bothers me so much, and I feel like it has elevated more for me now that I'm back in India and living with my, in-laws. Like, it's just you can clearly see that there's some gender roles that are assigned to, like a woman and a man, irrespective of how much a woman is earning or a man is earning, you know.
Yeah, it starts in childhood, right? And the color pink
Yeah.
is such a universal thing. I don't even think you can
Yeah.
say it's an Indian issue, right? People are just
Yeah.
like scared, like if the boy touches pink, he's gonna turn gay. Like that's the kind of fear people have for pink. And I don't get
I
it.
know.
Like such a cute color and kids are all the same. What's the problem there?
I know, exactly. And I also feel like this has been ingrained so much in kids as well. So, like, if other boys, if small boys wear pink, other boys would bully them, right?
Yeah.
Like, as if like wearing pink is a bad thing, like it's
I
just
mean,
a
I've
color.
seen people do that. Like without thinking they'll be like, oh, you don't, this is for girls, you don't wear this color, right? Like that kind of thing. So obviously
Right.
kids are gonna just absorb that. And then even
Yeah.
as adults you see this thing, right? Like how in Friends, you remember that episode where Ross has salmon shirt and everyone's like, no, it's a pink shirt. I mean,
Yeah.
it
What's
could
the big
not be a
deal?
whole thing to make
Yeah.
an episode around if it was not this big an issue, right? But
Right.
people are just
Right.
scared of it, like as if it makes you less of a man if you wear pink.
Yeah.
And that's like the
Actually,
least of it.
yeah, actually, even now that you talk about it, I feel like now that I like some because Friends is there on Netflix in India now, and I've been watching it
Oh,
again after a
lucky.
long time. But like now that I see some of the episodes, I feel like this was so sexist or racist or not appropriate at all. But versus like when I watched it when I was young, I was still like like wow, like I love the show, right? I still like it, but now you can
I think
pinpoint the things that are
now it's
happening.
more of a nostalgia thing, at least for me. Like,
Yeah,
oh, I love this show when I was growing up. So like, there
yeah,
are some jokes like you'll always remember. It has
yeah,
become like a topic of conversation, I think, for years, right? Where we just
yeah.
like talked about these shows. So it's hard to like distance from them. But definitely
Right.
there's like so many problematic things in these shows.
Yeah,
Like they
yeah.
are
There is.
sexist. They make so much fun of like Carol and Susan's marriage because they're
Yeah,
lesbians, right? Like that's
yeah.
that's just an ongoing joke. And then
Right.
like there are like Chandler is depicted kind of effeminate in some episodes,
Yeah.
and then there are all these homophobic jokes around it. So there's a lot
Right.
to unpack in that show alone.
Right, right. You're right. But I mean, yeah, I think, yeah, I think it's important to, also have discussions around that because now that I'm seeing kids of this generation, they actually watch Friends still, right? Like Friends is a classic show. But like, I mean, I feel like there has to be someone who will talk to them about these things because there wasn't anyone who was there for us to talk to us about it. But like I feel like we are still our generation is still comfortable talk bringing up topics like this, and discussing it with kids.
Yeah,
So,
and this
so I
show was
think,
made in a different time, so it was
yeah,
what it was back then. But
yeah,
if you imbibe the same values today, then it's not creating a good society going forward.
right, right, exactly, exactly. And
And
coming back to like the discussion that we digress so much like in our discussion.
I think that's our whole thing. We
Yeah,
we pick a book and then we digress into all these topics.
I know. So yeah, like coming back to the discussion of the what we were discussing the issue of
Gender
like
roles.
gender roles. Yes, gender roles. And of course, like in Indian families, I have been noticing that some Indian families who call themselves progressive, they're like, we love if, like we have a granddaughter, right? Like we want to have a granddaughter. That's all that we need. But there are still some who just like, not some, actually, there are many. I mean, I feel like they're in the majority even still who don't want a granddaughter, or at least, who are still like in this mindset of, okay, so if there is one girl, there should be one boy. And then your family is complete, right? So I feel like that is this ongoing theme that I have been seeing a lot in families. And then like for example, my friend who's of our generation, they're supposed to have more, like progressive mindsets. Not even progressive, I guess, normalized mindsets. Like she she was like, she had a baby boy, and she's like, thank god I have a baby boy because I wouldn't know how to raise a daughter, right? And I was like, and to me it just seems so contradictory because if I'm scared of, like, when I do have children, I'm scared of having a boy, because then to me it's more responsibility of raising a boy in a more humane way possible than, you could ever raise. Then, like, how much, I mean, it's all, I feel like what I'm trying to say is that Indian society has got it backwards, right? They start to think that, oh, girls are more responsibility. We have to take care of girls. We have to be responsible. We have to be protective. But it's actually the other way around. You have to take care of how you're raising boys, right? How you're raising your men. That's the whole thing that the society has to change, like this mindset.
Absolutely. But they don't do that, right? That's why they wish for boys. That
Yeah.
I don't think that's the only reason, but I feel they find boys easy because they are not really giving them any values. If boys mess
Mm,
up, it's like, oh, what can you do? Boys are boys. But
yeah.
like the entire society has placed this concept of izzat on girls and women. So it's like girls have to be raised in a way where they just cannot mess up. They cannot
Right.
have boyfriends. They cannot get pregnant before they're married. And these are like extreme situations. Uh, I remember growing up instances where even if somebody would say something about you, true or false, it would be an issue because it all comes back victim blaming back to the girl, that it's
Right.
somehow your fault what you were wearing, or why were you there, why did you not come home directly, it's kind of
Right.
your problem. And it's sad to know that people are still following that. I don't know how
Mhm.
that would change or how we can change that, but it's like straightforward logic. If you raise boys to be right, all these problems you're scared of will actually go down. That is where the
Right.
problem lies, but nobody wants to touch that. It's like
Yeah.
somebody is looking at my daughter, I'll put her in a burqa kind of a thing. Like the
Right.
whole parda system that was introduced
Yeah.
in the society years ago, it is all a product of this thinking, right? And they've
Right.
never moved beyond it.
Yeah, yeah. This reminds me, of this movie that I recently watched of Ranveer Singh. Have you seen that movie, Jayesh Bhai Zordar? It's
No,
on
not yet.
Prime. So in that, what happens is, like, there's this village, and all of these people come and tell the head of the panchayat, who's actually Ranveer Singh's dad, Bamuni Rani. They tell them, like, the men in the village are becoming more, more and more, like, they're going out of their. Uh, I guess, like, they're like eve teasing girls more, or they're like, their rapes have increased and stuff like that. So this the panchayat head, he comes up with a solution that all the soaps in the village should be banned for girls to use, because girls use soap, they take a shower, they smell really good, and that's what encourages men to, eve tease them or rape them. And I
Oh
was
my
like,
god.
wow. Oh, this is exactly that thinking. How
Yeah,
twisted is that?
it's like we can't control men, also we don't want to control men, right? Like
Yeah.
universally you can see this. Anytime there's a problem, like America for example, right? Someone is going mass shooting, but they still won't control the guns. They still
Yes.
are
Right.
afraid to touch that.
Yeah.
But an issue like abortions, they're so quick to be like, let's control women's bodies and their
Yeah.
rights, right? Like
Right.
that is a perfect example of how twisted this society is. And I have no answer for why. Maybe our listeners do. They have some inputs about it. But I don't know why. Like the focus is just one directional.
Yeah, it's always been like that. And you can see it in, like, the smallest of things to, like, the biggest of issues in this world. Like, it's always been like that. They just want to control people, but women are probably the easiest to control. So they do all of this, bullshit to control women.
Yeah, even little girls are controlled in that way, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, you girls are smarter, girls are sensible than boys, is what we
Yeah.
hear, right? Like, that's
Yeah.
such a conditioning for you to just like overperform versus boys are getting these free cards.
I know. Oh my God. Like, don't even tell me about it. Like, I feel like all the boys that I'm seeing around me, even in my family, like my in-laws' family, they're all so stupid because, like, and because nothing is ever expected of them. They're not expected to do anything. Versus girls,
Yeah,
like, I mean, it's so weird. Can you just, yeah, okay, fine. I just don't want to get into this rant at all.
but it is true, right? If nobody's expecting much of me, I have no incentive to like rise
Yeah.
up to the occasion, right? Like
Yeah.
if the bar is low, I'm happy at the low bar. We are all lazy people.
Right, right. And I think it's also right, like I feel like this also comes from a very old Indian, mentality when girls didn't used to work. Now, at that point, it was like, oh yeah, boys are working, boys are getting money in the house, so they shouldn't have any other responsibility or any other expectation, right, from them. But now it's like girls are earning as much as boys do. So what are the expectation, like, now the expectation should actually be equal from girls and boys, but it's never like that.
I
I
was just
still
talking to my friend, and we were like, we all know this, that men do a little bit and they are earning points. And no
Yeah.
matter how much women are doing, it's like, oh, you didn't do that. Like you're still failing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I have seen that in so many things. I mean, there is some sort of guilt in me as well. Like, I don't enjoy cooking, but I have to because, you know, because it's sort of like I'm supposed to, right? Even if we have a 24-hour cook in our house, I am supposed to go in the kitchen and talk to her and show her recipes on what to
That's your
cook.
gender role. How can you
It
not
is.
live
It
that?
is. Yeah. The first day we came in the house, we entered the house, like in 2 hours, people like my in-laws told me, okay, so now you are the lady of the house. You have to decide what to cook, what not to cook. And my husband was
My
told, you are the
God,
man of the house. You have to, like take care of the finances and all of those things. And
I
I
think,
was
man,
literally,
that is the worst part of cooking, to be honest, to actually think like what to cook and
yeah,
plan the entire thing. It's such like, I think of it as a very waste cognitive load.
it
Maybe
is.
because I
It
don't
is.
enjoy cooking, right? There are people who get
Yeah.
joy out of it. For
Yeah.
me, it's like a drudgery. And I feel like, why am I good at cooking? Because if I was bad at cooking, people will be like, man, please don't cook. You suck at it.
No, still
That
people are not like that because I am bad at cooking. But like, there's this aunt of my husband's who comes in the who she came to the house yesterday as well, and she's like, "Oh, I want to, I'm going to come on Sunday, and you are going to cook something for me. I want to eat from your hands." And I was thinking, like, why do you want to ruin your Sunday, man? Like, okay, I will cook, but it'll ruin your life if you eat that food.
put a lot of chili in it. Nobody will ask you again.
Yeah, and then I was like, "Oh, okay, मिर्ची ज़्यादा हो गई क्या? Oh, sorry, sorry, sorry."
That's the only way out of it.
So true. Okay, so
Speaking
where
of
were we?
Indian women,
Oh,
speaking
yes.
of Indian women that you're seeing around, I actually, when I was reading this book and you were moving around that time, right? So I had this question I wanted to ask you ever since. So
Um,
Renu in this book is a woman of previous generation, but she's written with a sense of a little bit of a modernity in it, like because she grew up outside India, so she's a modern woman compared to her peers.
mhm.
Now that you are in India, I want to hear your observation. Is today's Indian woman closer to how Rain is depicted in the book? What would you say?
Okay, that's a very good question because, yeah, like uh, everything that I've said up until now has been about, how the previous generation is still not able to cope up with our generation. But what I've noticed now, like moving back to India, is that women of today, like women like us, our age, they are going after what they want, like they are not sacrificing for their families, for their husbands, or for their kids. And that's actually the best thing that I've seen when I moved back to India. I was not expecting that. Like things like, they're not hesitant to change the course of their lives if they realize they've made a mistake. Like, for example, they're more open to getting divorces now if they find that, they made a mistake marrying this guy. Or they're just like happy being single and chasing their professional dreams. And of course, like, there's this previous generation that's trying to hold them back, that's trying to spread gossip or things like that about women like us. But these women, they're not like they're not listening, they're just not giving anything to this bullshit. And it's just so wonderful to see. I feel like it's like a silent revolution, and I'm absolutely loving it.
That's awesome. But you know what?
Yeah.
You just sounded like we are promoting divorces on our podcast. I'm hoping we don't get backlash for this.
No. I'm not promoting divorces, but like, you should get one if you're not happy.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the thing, right? Like, we are at a stage where women have some financial freedom, and women
Yes.
are also realizing. I mean, why would you not realize? You're studying the same places, you're also
Yeah.
going out in the world, and you see your worth. Whereas earlier, women used to be married off really young, and like when they're
Yeah.
just like young girls, so you never get to really understand life or yourself until
Right.
it's too late. And then, of course, the most famous and favorite word of our community is adjust.
Yes.
That has always kept
Yeah.
women in these bad relationships, so it's great to hear that there's a change.
Yeah, women are just refusing to adjust, even in things like their, I don't know, eating preferences, right? They're just refusing to adjust. They're like, I love non-veg and I'm going to eat it. Fuck you and your family. Like,
Oh
it's
my
it's
god.
like wonderful.
This is
Because
giving me a flashback, Khyati. I remember when I was in I would say high school age.
Mhm.
uh, so there used to be this TV show, I don't remember which. So there's this girl who doesn't eat bhindi in the show, and
Mhm.
then she's married, and on her wedding party, there's bhindi, and then she's eating it, and her mom is like, "Oh, you didn't like this, why are you eating this?" And she's like, अब तो मेरी शादी हो गई है ना, अब तो मुझे सब खाना पड़ेगा. Imagine
Oh my
what,
God.
like, watching all this at like in high school. No wonder you would be like, I don't want to get married. I might have to eat bangan ka bharta. I don't want to get married ever.
That's so true. That's so true. I think it's like, yeah. Things, of course, I mean, things change when I mean, especially when you're living with your in-laws, it's different. But I mean, I guess the women of today, they are just like, this is who I am, this is how I am, and if you want to accept it, great. Otherwise, I'm leaving. Like that. So I think,
That's
in
awesome.
fact, when my mom, because like my mom has me, who's already married, but she also has a son, like my brother, and she's like, I'm so scared looking at the condition of all the mother-in-laws around me. Like they live like, they're so scared living in their own house. Like, I don't know, I feel like I should not get married right now. Like, better take your time, take your time.
I think our parents' generation is probably going to have the worst of it, because
Yeah,
up till their point, they were serving their mother-in-laws and whatever. So those
yeah,
mother-in-laws got their due, I guess.
yeah,
For this generation, they serve their mother-in-law, but when it's their turn to get the
yeah.
due, the next
I
generation is
know.
like, nope, not happening.
It's so sad, man. But what to do? You should have raised your voice when you got the
I
chance.
know,
Like,
right? It's like patriarchy's last thread of power that women get when they become mother-in-law. And like
yeah,
with things changing, it's being snatched from them. No wonder they are
yeah.
all like, oh my God, look at other women. I don't like it.
I know. But yeah, but I think that was a good question actually. Do you have any other questions for me, or should we move to the brownie points?
I don't have questions, but just want to close with that. I loved how Renu's character is written, because
Hmm.
you see, like, being of that generation, she is docile and does what her parents say, but then towards the end you see that she still kept a part of herself that is truly herself while she was doing her duties, that as she was taught to, and then in the end she goes after them. That was like really inspiring to read, I guess, like that even at
Yeah,
that old age, it's not like life is over, which is what we hear in Indian society a lot, that once you're married, life is over, forget old age, right?
yeah,
So that is
yeah.
very refreshing to read.
But once you have kids, life is truly over. Like, you should know that.
Speaking from experience,
I'm seeing people around me. They, but yeah, coming back to it, yes, I love Renu's character. Like, I feel like she's, I mean, yeah, she gives me a little bit of hope for, like, the our previous generation, like our moms, because there were people like, there were women like Renu in that generation. But it just like, I really loved how they have written this character, like how Neil wrote this character. I like it too.
yeah.
And that is actually, I think, one of my brownie points, maybe. Yeah, it was, I think, one of my brown. No, it wasn't. Sorry, but yeah, good you, good you brought it up.
But please go ahead with your brownie point. You have
Oh
been
yes.
plugging it.
So I think one of my I would give this book one brownie point because of how real the characters are, like the way Neel Patel has told this complex life story that as a straight Indian girl, I should not be able to relate to, but I did because like I can totally see how like I have been born and brought up in this Indian culture, and I know how it is, so I could totally relate to it, and I think it's a testament to Neil's writing. And I also liked how he has structured the book because he tells like the mom's mother's part first and then the son's part, so you can easily like see the differences and the similarities between their lives, between their past and the present. I like that.
Yeah, I also loved his writing a lot in this book. Um, and speaking of relatability, right? Like, there's this older brother. I think his name is Bijal. He's a straight guy, but there's so much relatability in that character as well. Because you see him trying to please the parents, make the parents happy, do what the parents say, and the expectations are like becoming a doctor because the dad is a doctor, like all those things which are very much interspersed in our culture and upbringing, right? And I actually loved this book even more than his first book. So because the storytelling was so much more powerful in this.
Yeah, yeah, I didn't know he had a first book.
Yeah, it was a collection of short stories. It's
Okay.
called If You See Me, Don't Say Hi.
Oh, I like the title.
I know, right? I
Yeah.
feel like that should be on my face all the time.
That I feel like I'll just make like a bulletin board out of it and put it near my house, like on top of the house that I live in right now.
Put your photo next to it. So, like, if you see
Yeah,
this person,
so they
don't say
know.
hi.
But yeah, that's okay. I'm going to read it. I'm going to read
Yeah,
that book
those were
too.
good stories. But I think you can definitely see uh, a change in writing. And of course, like getting more refined with writing another book, I guess.
Right.
So, this one is much more better for me.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what are you reading right now, Daman?
Um, Not much compared to how I usually do. I just finished listening to this book called The Flat Share. It's like a romantic story, kind of a rom-com that you're listening to on your walks. It was kind of entertaining.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
and I also started listening to this book by Jodi Picoult called The Book of Two Ways, uh, which is pretty interesting. It has elements of Egyptology. There's a profession called death doula. So, like, I'm learning a lot of
Oh,
new things that
wow.
I probably didn't know about. And I guess I can tell you more once I finish the book. Um,
Yeah.
and I also like, I'm a productivity book addict of sorts. Even if I don't implement anything, I just like to read them. So I picked this book called My Morning Routine. So it has stories of people's morning routines. I was hoping I'll find something that works for me to make me a morning person because that has been a goal, no, not goal, a wish of mine forever to maybe be a morning person, which I don't think I inherently am. So I'm just reading it.
So okay, I think, yeah, I would also, I mean, I am a really great morning person, when I wake up in the morning, it's like the best day. But I have been like waking up later and later now, like for some reason, because it's like it's important to sleep early if you want to wake up in the morning,
Yeah,
which
that's the thing,
usually
right? For
don't
me,
do.
that doesn't work.
Yeah.
My brain is super excited at night. It's almost like
Yeah.
the later it gets, I'm like, what can I do? I get all these ideas, and I also like remember things to do. In the morning, my to do list, even if I sit and try to write, I won't remember anything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird for non-morning persons. I know my husband is not a morning person. Like
I
I
know.
know how it is.
I'm like, don't talk to me for 1 hour.
Yeah, same with him.
Because
And
it's
I am
like,
literally, dancing in front of like, I'm just so excited.
okay,
I'm dancing and on Punjabi songs, and he's like looking at me with
you
like,
are
like
exactly the
disgust.
person I hate, Khyati. No,
But
seriously. How are we friends? How are we
I
doing
don't
this
know. I
together?
don't know. Such different personalities. Oh my God.
Good thing you went to India.
Now we are literally poles apart.
Yes.
But so I'm reading the book that you gifted me, Finlay Donovan and
Oh,
Finlay
nice.
Donovan knocks them dead. Yeah.
Knocks him dead. How are you liking
Yeah.
it?
I really like it. Like I think it's a book that I picked up after a long, long time. It's been like I think 2 to 3 months. Like since I moved back to India, I haven't read.
I mean, you have been
But
so busy, right?
yeah, busy like
I see your
moving.
stories, you're partying all the time.
Oh yes, like but I feel like that. Oh man, yeah. Like I was like there are stories that I would like to tell you someday, but yeah, yeah.
Intrigue.
So that's I just didn't get the time to read anything. But now I was like, I want to pick up like a light book, no nothing non-fiction or like a heavy book. I don't want to do that, so that's why I picked up this book, and I really
Hmm.
like it. It's actually fun to read.
Yeah, I feel
Um,
like these books are also good palate cleanser sometimes because,
yes, yeah,
really get back into reading easily
right.
instead of like a non-fiction where you kind of have to work to read it.
Right. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I guess that's it for today. Do you have anything else to add, Daman?
No, that's it. I guess let us know your thoughts if you have read the book already, like what you think. Hit us up on Instagram, Run Girl Street Pod, to chat with us about books and also follow any other recommendations we have and see what we are reading next. So, for that announcement, stay tuned.
Yes. Thank you, everyone, and see you next with a new book.
Till then, if you're not read already, read this book. We recommend it.
Yes.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.